This is Northern Light for Thursday, July 2nd. Good morning. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Catherine Wheeler. New York celebrated its completion of a massive upgrade in the state's transmission grid. Its hubs in Messina, and local officials hope it will boost the North Country economy.
There's a direct correlation between energy generation, consumption, and economic activity. So if we're generating power, there's going to be economic activity here, which is good for the taxpayer, good for the ratepayers, good for all of us.
Also on the show, the nation is celebrating its 250th birthday this weekend, and the curator from Fort Ticonderoga shares recent discoveries of artifacts from the American Revolution.
What we found was there was an incredible survival rate for artifacts on this site. I think it surpassed anyone's expectations.
And we take a look at a St. Lawrence County's family's unique 4th of July tradition, throwing its own parade.
All that's coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us. Support for Northern Light comes from the Lake Placid Sinfonietta, live orchestral music in the heart of the Adirondacks from July 8th through August 16th. Performance schedule and more at lakeplacidsinfonietta.org. And from CCOM Credit Union, serving the financial needs of people throughout northern New York and northwestern Vermont. In person, online at ccom.org, and on smartphones. This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Catherine Wheeler. Opponents of Governor Kathy Hochul's plans to expand nuclear power capacity in New York rallied across the state this week. They argue that nuclear power is not a climate solution and would be terrible for ratepayers. Ethan Gromley with Citizen Action of New York says the state is going in the wrong direction after Hochul pushed for a delay in sub-deadlines in the state's climate law because of affordability concerns.
She was saying renewables are not affordable enough, but here she is dumping huge amounts of money and our priorities into the most expensive form of energy.
A proposed nuclear moratorium fell short in the legislature this year. Mark Nalea with People of Albany United for Safe Energy, or PAWS, says advocates will keep trying.
Some people are going to be intervening in the Public Service Commission. We've been trying to get the state legislature, state officials to take a clear stance.
Last week, Hochul directed the New York Power Authority to develop an advanced zero-emission nuclear power plant. In June, the Public Service Commission launched a full examination of how to bring nuclear power online in a timely, cost-effective manner.
Meanwhile, in Messina, state officials held a ribbon cutting last week to celebrate the completion of a huge 7-year project to upgrade New York's power grid. A new 100-mile power line carries electricity from the hydropower dam in Messina downstate more quickly and efficiently. It cost $1.5 billion to build, but officials say it'll save ratepayers multiple times that and speed up the transition to energy that doesn't cause climate change. As David Summerstein reports, local leaders hope the modernized transmission can make the North Country a green energy hub.
Bluebird skies frame giant electric transmission towers in every direction. And below them, about a dozen officials cut a New York Power Authority ribbon. This brand new Haverstock substation in Messina is the pivot point for 3 major upgraded power lines, a project called Smart Path Connect. Regional Manager Andy Boulay points where one comes from the massive Moses Saunders hydropower dam on the St. Lawrence River.
Out this corner, we've got our Haverstock to Willis HW lines.
That goes to Clinton County.
And in the far northwest corner, you can't barely see it, are our 2 lines that go down to Adirondack.
Way down in the Mohawk Valley. They replaced miles of wooden poles and antiquated lines erected in the 1950s and 60s. Trish Lombardi of the New York Power Authority says these lines can push more electricity downstate more efficiently.
From where the power is being generated from, right, up here at St. Lawrence, there are a lot of renewables, right, trying to come onto the grid. So what you see here is really like a very robust backbone.
Lombardi says that new high-tech backbone will save ratepayers about $438 million a year, or more than $1 a month on every resident's electric bill. NYPA's Abraham Mohammed says, think of it like putting a 4-lane highway where there used to be a 2-lane road.
You basically let people move a lot more easier. They use less gas, they spend less time on the road. It lowers cost for everyone who's involved.
The Smart Path Connect project is a win for Governor Kathy Hochul in a year she's taken a lot of hits over her response to climate change. She pushed the legislature to roll back its ambitious climate law, moving a benchmark to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030. Now it's 60% by 2040. That angered environmentalists. But she said it was needed because New York has been slow to bring renewable sources of energy online, in part because the transmission grid was outdated.
If we can't guarantee that we can move the power from where it's generated to where it's needed, then that introduces risk.
Risk that scares off companies that build and invest in wind and solar and battery storage, says Lindsay Anderson, who's an expert in renewables and transmission grids at Cornell University. She says the completion of Smart Path Connect sends a positive signal to the industry.
It signals that we're willing to invest to get the infrastructure in place to modernize and increase capacity so that we can continue to move towards this decarbonization strategies.
The new lines also open up space for another gigawatt of electric supply from the North Country. More solar, more wind, even nuclear. State Senator Dan Stack says, yes, those can be controversial, but overall, more electric generation can juice the regional economy.
There's all kinds of studies that show over history there's a direct correlation between energy generation, consumption, and economic activity. So if we're generating power, there's going to be economic activity here, which is good for the taxpayer, good for the ratepayers, good for all of us.
And more generation will be critical in the coming years. The system operator that runs the grid says it's getting squeezed by an increase in demand coming from electric cars and big new users like Micron's semiconductor plants and new data centers, all while fossil fuel plants are aging and the state is scrambling to replace them with a new clean energy future. David Sommerstein, North Country Public Radio, Messina.
This is NCPR.
You're listening to Northern Light from North Country Public Radio. It's 8:09. Good morning. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Catherine Wheeler. Stick around. We'll learn more about how one family in St. Lawrence County comes together to celebrate the 4th of July.
That's coming up in just a few minutes here on Northern Light. First, we'll hear a little bit more music from Mark Corey out of Watertown. Support for Northern Light comes from Cronin's Golf Resort, a regional destination for golf, dining, and lodging in the southern Adirondacks. Details at croninsgolfresort.com. And from St. Lawrence Nurseries, Potsdam, providing the North Country with cold, hardy fruit and nut trees for over 100 years. slngrow.com.
This summer, the Department of Environmental Conservation is bringing back its motorized wheelchair program at Great Camp Santanoni in Newcomb. It allows people with mobility issues to explore miles of Adirondack wilderness that would otherwise be out of reach. As David Escobar reports, this year's program is also easier to book and available on more dates.
The trail to Great Camp Santanoni Historic Area stretches about 5 miles through the woods from the state highway in Newcomb. It's a wide dirt and gravel road that once served as the Great Camp's carriage road. Today, it's popular with hikers, bicyclists, and horseback riders. 3 years ago, the state launched a program that lets visitors with mobility disabilities borrow a motorized electric wheelchair to make the trip. The device allows people to explore the historic site independently. This year, the program is expanding. Reservations are now available every weekend, on holiday Mondays, and on many weekdays through October 12th. The DEC also simplified the program's reservation process. Several pre-registration documents are now combined into one online form, and visitors can book the date of their visit using an online calendar system. As of now, the DEC is only offering one scooter-style power wheelchair. In a statement, the agency says it plans to roll out other mobility device options later this summer. More information, including eligibility requirements and reservation details, is available on the DEC's website. David Escobar, North Country Public Radio.
David Escobar is a Report for America Corps member. He reports on diversity issues in the Adirondacks through a partnership between North Country Public Radio and the Adirondack Explorer.
A popular cross-country ski center in the Adirondacks has a new owner. The Adirondack Mountain Club announced on Tuesday that it has sold the Cascade ski area in Lake Placid to Brian Pollock of Noonmark Holdings. The Adirondack Daily Enterprise reports that Pollock hopes to reopen the facility to the public this winter. ADK purchased Cascade in 2022, but reported annual operating losses and ran into issues with the state grant used to buy the site. The Mountain Club didn't say what the final sale price was. The list price was most recently lowered to just under $2 million. ADK says it plans to partner with the new owner on education, training, workshops, and outing programs.
A Plattsburgh man was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison Tuesday for the murder of his wife last fall. 34-year-old Keith Henry had previously admitted to killing 25-year-old Chloe Henry of Moores. He shot her in his vehicle while their 2 children were present and then abandoned her body in a wooded area in Chazy. Henry will also serve concurrent sentences of 1.5 years to 3 years in prison for concealment of a human corpse and 364 days in jail for child endangerment. The Clinton County District Attorney's Office said part of his plea agreement was identifying the location of the murder weapon and testifying against his co-defendant, 35-year-old Heaven Dashnaw of Plattsburgh. Dashnaw was found guilty last week of helping to hide Chloe's body. She's scheduled to be sentenced in late August. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, you can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-SAFE. That's 800-799-7233. You can also text START to 88788 or go to thehotline.org to start an online chat.
A new public transit service is coming to the North Country next week. Jefferson County Public Transit will launch a week from today on July 9th. The service will operate 4 routes that begin in Watertown and travel throughout the county. 3 of those routes will offer connections to St. Lawrence, Lewis, and Oswego counties. A one-way fare will cost $2. There are multi-ride passes available. The transit service will run Monday to Friday. All buses are wheelchair accessible, equipped with bicycle racks, and open to the public.
News outlets in New York could soon be required to disclose when they use generative artificial intelligence to create content. State lawmakers in Albany overwhelmingly approved a bill that would require proactive disclosure for stories substantively shaped by AI. Sam Wheeler is the executive director of the Writers Guild of America East. He told Public Radio's The Capitol Press Room that the measure is supposed to promote public awareness and encourage the use of human journalists.
We think that this is a common sense disclosure provision that, of course, is going to protect journalists, but we also think that it protects the public. When we talk to our journalists members who overwhelmingly supported this legislation, the most common thing that we heard throughout those discussions was that they felt like they needed to do this to protect their readers, their viewers, and their listeners.
Governor Hochul has until the end of the year to act on the bill, which is facing stiff opposition from organizations representing print and broadcast news outlets.
New artifacts dating back to the American Revolution were found at Fort Ticonderoga a few years ago. Crews have been working to preserve and restore more than 500 artifacts ahead of the nation's 250th anniversary. The New York Public News Network's Pat Bradley reports from Ticonderoga.
About a mile from the entrance to Fort Ticonderoga is an unassuming brick building with a sign indicating it is the Thompson Pell Research Center. It's where you find the artifacts that are not currently on display at the fort. It's also the Center for Research and Processing of New Artifacts. It's where I meet Fort Ticonderoga curator Matthew Cagle.
Hi there.
Good to see you.
Likewise. I can take you downstairs where we have our artifacts and our collection storage. Shall we?
As we head downstairs, Cagle talks about the fort's collections.
We have at least tens of thousands of objects here. We don't have the entire collection here. We also have an off-site storage area. The museum's collections we estimate at being probably a little over 200,000 artifacts. But the bulk of that is back here. Back here is the heart of the collections.
The room we enter has dozens of racks holding hundreds of historic weapons.
We've got rifles, muskets, carbines, fusils, fowling pieces, wall guns, rampart guns, swivel guns, pole arms. We have swords, sabers, epées, the whole range of edged weapons, pistols, daggers, in addition to cannon themselves, which are largely on display up at the fort itself.
On the opposite wall are shelves holding military headgear. Between them is a small table with a tray holding about a dozen of the latest artifacts unearthed on the fort's property.
In the fall of 2024, we did some preliminary excavations, a survey of Liberty Hill, as it was called during the American Revolution. And what we found was there was an incredible survival rate for artifacts on this site. I think it surpassed anyone's expectations.
Donning a pair of gloves, Cagle removes one of the items from its protective sleeve.
Obviously, the volume of soldiers that were here means that there's a lot of pieces from firearms. This little bit right here is called a thumb piece, and it's engraved with the letter I and the number 46. This would have allowed an officer to identify which soldier was issued this musket. Sadly, almost none of the paperwork for this kind of thing survives, but theoretically, we should be able to, if we knew the regiment this was in, identify who carried it.
Cagle unbags another artifact.
I can show you one more example here of a pretty remarkable object. This is the point of a spear. And these, despite being pretty archaic, still had a place by the Revolutionary War.
Now, I know you're wearing gloves to protect the artifacts, but I'm curious, after 200 and more years, is that still sharp?
It is not sharp as such, but I certainly wouldn't want to run my hands along this, not because of the blade's sharpness, but all these little cavities from just age and wear make it, a little more like a saw blade than a spear blade.
One of the pieces found on Liberty Hill that most excites Cagle is part of a brass writing implement called a penner.
What's hidden inside this tube is actually a small knife blade to cut the nib of your pen. This one was actually up on the lines near part of the camp of the 4th Pennsylvania Battalion, and I find this really compelling because we here in the museum have at least 3 orderly books kept by the 4th Pennsylvania Battalion that may very well have been written by the ink once contained in the base of this object.
Cagle finds that even the smallest items have historical significance. He shows a button found at Liberty Hill with engravings identifying it from the Pennsylvania 2nd Battalion deployed at the fort.
On July 28, 1776, this regiment's colonel read the Declaration of Independence for the very first time to these Pennsylvania soldiers. So that button witnessed the reading of the Declaration of Independence here. I am sure of it.
The Liberty Hill excavation has found hundreds of artifacts, and nearly 100 items have so far been preserved. The artifacts are not yet on public display, but could be included in future exhibits. In Plattsburgh, I'm Pat Bradley for the New York Public News Network.
This is NCPR. You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. It's 8:21. Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Catherine Wheeler. Stick around after the show for Bird Note. That's coming up at 8:42. With our eyes to the skies, sunset in Schuyler Falls is at 8:43 tonight, and the moon is a waning gibbous at 94% of full.
In the weather forecast, the entire North Country is still either under a heat advisory or heat watch or heat warnings all day today and most of the day tomorrow, continuing until about 7 o'clock. Heat indices today expected to be around 100 degrees, if not higher, and with a lot of humidity too. And that combination does make the risk of getting a heat-related illness like heat exhaustion or sunstroke much more likely. So make sure to stay hydrated, drink plenty of water, even if you're not thirsty. Check on your older neighbors and neighbors who live alone. Check multiple times a day. And make sure to keep a good eye on your kiddos and pets, too, to not spend too much time outside. There is a chance for thunderstorms as we head into this weekend. Today, though, is supposed to be pretty sunny out. Again, with highs expected to be in the 90s and heat indices around 100 degrees. At last check, it was 77 degrees in Malone, 76 degrees in Lake Placid already, 75 degrees in Indian Lake, 69 in Racket Lake, and 70 degrees in Croghan in the beautiful Tug Hill Plateau.
The 4th of July is just a few days away, and the country is celebrating its 250th birthday. Special events are taking place all across the U.S. and in the North Country. Ticonderoga is hosting its Best Fourth in the North Festival now through July 5th at Percy Thompson Park. Indian Lake is celebrating Independence Day with a full day of activities across town, including a fireworks show at dusk. And the Glens Falls Symphony is performing their Summer Pops concert tomorrow night in Crandall Park. It's free and open to everyone. And the concert starts at 7:30 with fireworks to follow.
Many families will be coming together for the holiday weekend, too. In St. Lawrence County, one family has been celebrating the 4th of July for decades with a unique tradition, its very own parade. Catherine Wheeler has more.
Duncan Cutter says it all began back in 1969. The family was gathering at their homestead in Nicholville for the 4th of July. Cutter says they were talking about a recent parade his mother had been a part of when an idea struck. They could do that too. Cutter says on the 4th, they ran to the barn out back where the family had saved generations of old clothes, some dating back to the mid-1800s. They put together the goofiest costumes they could.
They dress up and arm themselves with some kind of noisemakers. 7 of the grandchildren out of 9 played instruments. So we had trumpets and trombones and you name it.
They made posters and set off around 11 a.m. for a short walk across the tiny town of Nicholville in eastern St. Lawrence County. It's about halfway between Potsdam and Malone.
And all we do is walk up the street because the houses don't go very far, 200 yards, and then you're out of Nicholville. Then we turn around, go back down another 200 yards down to the post office.
Thus, the tradition was born, and the family has kept it up for the past 57 years. Rebecca Day Cutter, Duncan's niece, was born not long after it got started. She says over the years, they've incorporated the family dogs, pogo sticks, roller skates, stilts, wigs, anything wacky to up the ante. There are themes and still lots of noise. She sent us some videos from parades past.
You know any Metallica?
As we're marching, we want to sing songs, but no one can ever remember a full song. So we sort of string together little bits of any song that anyone can remember, and they just kind of bleed into each other.
All right, somebody else come up with another verse.
Duncan Cutter says the most important part of the parade is the very end, the family photo.
We always look forward to ending up down on the post office. Of course, it's closed because it's a holiday, but that's the place where we've always taken our pictures. And somewhere scattered through our various houses, we have at least 50 pictures of the parade.
But their day doesn't end with that. Rebecca Cutter says they go back home for a big picnic and then head to the river.
We would get the inner tubes out of the barn and get our river sneakers on. And we'd go up with the inner tube over our heads and walk along the river and put in. And it was a big rite of passage. I think I was 13 when my father allowed me to go down the river for the first time. And, you know, it was a little scary, exciting. We'd go all the way down to the bridge and then get out, and then we'd walk up and do it again. And we would do that all afternoon until you'd either get too cold or exhausted.
After, the Cutters would make their way back home and spend the night playing capture the flag across the property. She says this tradition embodies the things their family cares about.
To be together, to be silly, to be clever, to be creative. These were all like family values that I think came out on that day, and was really like a bonding experience for us, because we had cousins that would come in from, like, I lived in Watertown, and we had cousins from Connecticut and Maryland, and everyone would come together for this. And it was just, the building of memories.
This weekend, the Cutters will hold their 57th 4th of July parade. Duncan Cutter says he and his wife Lois are in their 90s, and they aren't taking it for granted.
I suspect it may be one of the last parades that we have. We can't live forever. It's just that the young people are moving away, and it's more difficult for them to get together. Phew, even to find a place to sleep here at night.
Cutter says he may not be able to do the entire route this year, but he'll definitely make it to the Nicholville post office.
I think I can do half the parade up to the end of the street and back, or maybe I'll let them take the first leg of it, and Lois and I will go down for the last leg down to the post office for the annual picture.
Rebecca Cutter says the family is all planning to show up dressed in their best. And even if it's the last one, they'll keep finding ways to come together and make memories. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio in Nicholville.
You can check out photos of the Cutter family's 4th of July celebrations over the years later this morning at our website, ncpr.org. Support for Northern Light comes from the Glenn and Carol Pearsall Adirondack Foundation, now accepting grant applications from Adirondack not-for-profits until August 31st. Details at pearsallfoundation.org.
That's it for the show. We're off tomorrow. We'll be back on Monday. I'm Catherine Wheeler.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Have a good weekend.